On November 14th, Flight 702 took off like any other flight. 214 passengers, clear destination, experienced pilots. Nothing seemed unusual. But less than an hour later, the aircraft completely disappeared from radar. No distress call, no explosion, no crash signal. For 3 terrifying hours, nobody knew where the plane had gone. And then, suddenly, Flight 702 returned. But according to the passengers, something was waiting for them inside the storm. And whatever they saw up there came back with them. November 14th, 11:22 p.m. Flight 702 prepared for departure beneath the cold glow of airport lights. Passengers moved quietly through the terminal, unaware that this ordinary flight would soon become one of the strangest aviation mysteries ever recorded. Outside, dark storm clouds slowly gathered above the city. But inside the aircraft, everything felt normal. Children laughed softly. Flight attendants greeted passengers with practiced smiles. Some people slept before takeoff. Others stared out the windows into the endless darkness beyond the runway. Sarah Bennett tightened her jacket around her son Ethan as they found their seats near the center of the plane. Across the aisle, David Cole barely looked up from his phone. And inside the cockpit, Michael Reyes calmly prepared for another routine flight. None of them knew that in less than 30 minutes, Flight 702 would disappear. And somewhere beyond those storm clouds, something was waiting. At first, it felt like normal turbulence. Small vibrations shook the cabin as Flight 702 climbed higher into the storm. Most passengers ignored it, but Captain Reyes noticed something strange immediately. The storm on the radar wasn't moving normally. It was spreading too fast. Outside the windows, lightning flashed violently across the clouds. The plane suddenly dropped several feet. Gasps filled the cabin. Overhead luggage rattled violently. Ethan grabbed his mother's arm tightly as the lights flickered above them. Then, the turbulence became worse, much worse. Flight attendants struggled to stay on their feet. Passengers screamed as another violent shock ripped through the aircraft. Inside the cockpit, warning alarms suddenly lit up across the control panel. One by one, the navigation systems began failing. And then Captain Reyes saw something that made his blood run cold. Directly ahead of the aircraft, hidden inside the storm, was a massive, glowing light. And within seconds, Flight 702 vanished from radar. 11:47 p.m. Flight 702 entered the center of the storm. Then suddenly, everything went silent. The engine stopped roaring. The turbulence disappeared. Even the screaming inside the cabin ended instantly. It was as if the entire aircraft had been swallowed by another world. Inside the cockpit, every screen went black. One by one, the controls stopped responding. Captain Reyes tried contacting air traffic control, but all he heard was static. Back in the control tower, radar operators watched in confusion as Flight 702 suddenly vanished from the screen. No explosion, no crash signal, no emergency transmission. The plane was simply gone. Panic spread in the tower immediately. Phones rang non-stop. Emergency teams were alerted. But thousands of feet above the ocean, the passengers of Flight 702 experienced something even more terrifying. Outside the windows, the storm was gone. There were no clouds, no stars, no moon, only darkness. endless darkness. Sarah stared out the window in horror as strange glowing shapes slowly moved beneath the aircraft. Ethan whispered quietly, "Mom, where are we?" Nobody answered, because nobody knew.
And then, the lights appeared.
At first, the lights appeared far away, small glowing shapes moving slowly beneath the aircraft. Nobody understood what they were, but as the plane drifted deeper into the void, the lights began moving closer. Sarah felt her heartbeat slowing, not from fear, but from something else, something unnatural. Inside the cabin, passengers stared silently through the windows as the glowing objects surrounded the plane. Then, suddenly, every clock inside the aircraft stopped moving. 11:47 p.m. Frozen. Phones stopped working. Watches stopped ticking. Even the cockpit instruments remained locked in place.
Negative response,
Captain Reyes tried restarting the systems again and again, but nothing changed. It was as if time itself had stopped existing. Then the whispers began, quiet at first, barely audible. Strange voices echoing softly through the cabin. Some passengers covered their ears, others began crying. David Cole stared down the empty aisle in horror after seeing a shadow move between the seats, but there was nobody there. Ethan suddenly pointed toward the window, and outside, standing within the darkness, were figures, tall, glowing figures, motionless, watching the plane. Sarah could barely breathe as one of them slowly raised its hand.
What's happening?
Then, every light inside the cabin shut off completely.
Help us!
And for one terrifying second, the passengers saw something impossible. The plane was no longer flying through the sky. It was floating above an endless black ocean. And deep beneath the water, thousands of glowing lights stared back at them. And then, one passenger disappeared. Without warning, the engines roared back to life. The entire aircraft shook violently. Passengers screamed as the cabin lights exploded back on. Oxygen masks dropped from the ceiling. Warning alarms blasted through the cockpit. And then, the storm returned. Lightning crashed around the aircraft once again as Flight 702 was thrown violently through the sky. Captain Reyes grabbed the controls immediately. The instruments were working again. The radar was online, but something was wrong. According to the flight systems, only 3 minutes had passed. 3 minutes. But every passenger on board knew that was impossible. They had been trapped in that darkness for hours. Some of them were crying. Others sat frozen in shock. Quickly, Sarah grabbed Ethan tightly, terrified they might disappear again. Then, Emma Collins suddenly noticed something strange near the back of the plane. Seat 47C, empty. David Cole was gone. His phone remained on the seat. His glasses were still there, but the passenger himself had vanished completely. Panic spread through the cabin immediately. People shouted his name. Some passengers searched the aisles. Others begged the pilots to land the plane immediately. Then, through the cockpit windshield, Captain Reyes finally saw city lights in the distance. Flight 702 had somehow returned. Back inside the control tower, radar operators froze in disbelief. After disappearing for 3 hours, Flight 702 suddenly reappeared on radar, exactly where it vanished. No distress signal, no explanation. It was simply back. But the strangest part was still waiting inside the aircraft. because moments before landing, David Cole returned. But when Sarah looked into his eyes, she realized something was terribly wrong. Flight 702 landed safely at 3:02 a.m., but nobody on board felt safe anymore. Emergency vehicles surrounded the aircraft as it rolled slowly across the runway. Police officers, medical teams, federal investigators, everyone wanted answers. Passengers were escorted into a secure airport terminal for questioning. Some were crying uncontrollably. Others sat silently in shock. Many of them told investigators the same impossible story: the darkness, the whispers, the glowing figures outside the plane. But officials refused to believe them. They blamed stress, fear, hallucinations caused by severe turbulence. Yet strange evidence quickly began appearing. Every clock recovered from Flight 702 had stopped at exactly 11:47 p.m. Wristwatches, cabin clocks, even backup cockpit timers, all frozen. Investigators also discovered something disturbing inside the flight recorder. During the 3 missing hours, there was almost no sound, no engines, no voices, no turbulence, only silence. Until suddenly, a strange sound appeared on the recording. A low, distorted whisper repeating the same sentence again and again. "You should not have returned." Technicians replayed the audio repeatedly in disbelief. Nobody could explain where the voice came from. Meanwhile, David Cole sat alone in a dark corner of the terminal, completely motionless. His skin looked pale, his eyes barely blinked. Sarah noticed something else about him too. Ever since he returned to the plane, he had not spoken a single word. Then, suddenly, David slowly turned toward her and smiled. But it wasn't normal. It was cold, empty, almost unnatural. Sarah immediately grabbed Ethan and backed away, because deep down, she realized something horrifying. The man who returned to Flight 702 might not have been David Cole anymore. And 2 days later, David Cole disappeared again. 2 days after the incident, David Cole disappeared again. This time, there were no witnesses, no warning, no explanation. Airport security cameras showed him leaving the terminal alone shortly before midnight, calm, silent, almost emotionless. But what investigators discovered next terrified everyone involved in the case. The final security camera that captured David showed something impossible. As he walked through an empty airport hallway, the lights around him began flickering violently. Then, for less than 1 second, the camera captured a shadow standing directly behind him, tall, thin, glowing faintly in the darkness. The same figure passengers claimed to have seen outside the plane. Then, the footage suddenly distorted, static flooded the screen, and David Cole vanished completely. Authorities searched for weeks, but no trace of him was ever found again. Officially, the government blamed the entire Flight 702 incident on severe weather and mass psychological trauma. The case was quietly closed. But the survivors never forgot what happened in the storm. Sarah Bennett refused to fly ever again. Ethan continued waking up screaming in the middle of the night, claiming he could still hear whispers calling his name. Captain Reyes retired only 3 months later. According to close friends, he became obsessed with one terrifying question. Where had Flight 702 gone during those missing hours? But the strangest discovery came nearly a year later. Investigators reviewing the damaged black box one final time uncovered hidden audio buried beneath the static. A voice, calm, deep, inhuman. It said only one sentence. The door was opened. And then another voice responded quietly from somewhere inside the cockpit. A terrified human voice, Captain Reyes, whispering 3 final words. It followed us. After that, the recording ended permanently. To this day, nobody knows what truly happened to Flight 702, but some investigators still believe that whatever the passengers saw inside the storm came back with them.
And somewhere, high above the clouds, the storm is still waiting.